So that 3.5 month span, you said this was one of the 3 times you had depression,
Right.
clinically depressed. Did you come out of depression in New Hampshire?
No.
And if not,
No.
how did you get out?
So this is the part that I enjoy the most. Okay, and this is part of where I've graduated to this. And this is not me, the early version of me, but this is me in part because of this guy. He's just such a great human being, and I've battled depression 3 times, acute depression. Once, as I said, with my mom having cancer, and the second time was going through, being so close professionally and seeing it slip away. And then the third time was when my dad died. I dug and clawed my way out the first 2 times. First time I was depressed. I was just a kid and I didn't know. Had no idea.
Oh, so one of these times is before your wrecks.
Yeah.
Okay.
But this is important.
Okay.
Because I want to help people, right? Like at the end of the day, you think about all the money we've made and all the great experiences we've had, and you say, all right, what do you give back? And there are people out there struggling. They don't need to struggle. Dale did me an enormous favor a while back in introducing me to Mickey Collins, and Mickey had a profound effect on helping me, what I call find my true north, and my true north being a metaphor, right? Everybody should have a true north. Like, who are you? What do you represent? What do you stand for? But the first time I had depression, I just powered through it. I didn't know. I thought I was losing my mind. Like my mom's going to die. I'm going to be living with my dad. I don't really care for my dad. And auto racing helped me power through that. Working on that car and stuff like that.
So this is back in the 70s.
Yeah, and then in the early 80s.
Early 80s.
And then the second time, was just Moosehead Lake. I mean, really, Moosehead Lake helped me recalibrate. Not just because I'm depressed and I'm sad, but because I needed time for my brain to heal. Like, doctors tell you right up front, and I'll never forget this. The first thing that I was told was, look, the brain is still very primitive to us. We can put your arm in a cast, or we can operate on your leg, and we can do some amazing things, but the brain is still that way. We've come a long way. But so the second time I experienced it, I just powered through it. Third time, my dad dies, and as I said earlier, my dad's always been a bit of a mystery, but I care deeply about my dad, and so I'm going to, and it was somewhat unexpected, but I had an anxiety attack or a panic attack, and I had them a few other times. I had them when I was a kid, when my mom was at Dana-Farber in Boston, and I had an anxiety attack when I was released from my contract driving the Bud car. But I didn't know what they were, okay? So I just powered through them. This was debilitating, and I actually, I needed to get some help. And so first thing I did was I met with a psychologist, and he went through this whole thing of fight and flight. And I was like, what the? I mean, I thought I was losing my mind. I came here, and the only thing I've confirmed is this guy's a quack. He's talking about fight and flight. What is that? And but in a deeper sense, it was it all pieces together, and so I was prescribed Lexapro, 10 milligrams of Lexapro, which I would not take. I've never taken anything, and I would not take. But I couldn't function, and eventually, I surrendered, took the Lexapro. And it was incredible. I mean, it absolutely worked. It had a very, very positive effect.
What year is this?
2010, 11.
Okay.
And I had not ever really thought about the first 2 bouts of depression, but because I didn't know anything about it back then. But then you sort of piece it all together, and it's like, okay, I've sort of unlocked a mystery here. And I was, and just go back to Moosehead Lake, which I sold recently. I still had never dealt with the things with my dad. Never had. And
what are the problems with your father?
I think that there is a responsibility of a dad that goes along with life, and I didn't really get that from my dad. I'm thankful that he introduced me to auto racing because it had an incredible effect, positive effect. My grandfather was a sheriff, and he says to me one day, I'm 15, 16 years old, and puts his arm around me, and he says, "Gosh, I'm proud of you. I'm so proud of you." He said, you become who you hang around. And I've been telling your dad this forever, and he chooses to hang around certain people. But you're around very successful people. In fact, people are clamoring to get to you and be a part of what you got going on. He says, keep doing that. And so you go back to just a few months ago, 4 or 5 months ago, when you introduced me to Mickey. There were still some things that I was dealing with, and I had lost my compass. People say, "How you doing?" Well, I'm good. People close to me, I'd say, I'm in the middle of the ocean, 30-foot waves.
Yeah,
it's nighttime. Is that all you got? I lost my damn compass, but I'm fine. I'm gonna be fine because I've been in this storm before, and it wasn't until I got together with Mickey, and he said to a lot of it's personal, but he just helped me connect the dots. And January of this year, I made a decision, an executive decision, that all right, I'd have enough. Like, I had tried a different medication. I had been on Lexapro since my dad died. And I said, I'm done. I stop everything. I'm not, I take an Ambien to sleep and stop taking everything. It took a month and a half or so to get clear, to clear my mind. Yeah, to get sort of detox, right? Mm-hmm. But I share this with people because this is the best that I've felt in, over 10 years, And you can't always identify what your problem is. You can look in the mirror and you can say, I fixed this or this or this, but sometimes it's deep-rooted. And I never dealt with my dad before he died, and when he died, it closed the book, and I could never open it again.
Yeah.
Couldn't open it again.
Did he die suddenly? There was no opportunity to be able to make amends?
So the quick version of that is that, my dad never said to my sister and I that I remember, and I love you,
Never said I love you.
But consequently, I say I love you to my kids every single time I talk to them.
Because of this.
Yeah, and we're not going to take the chance that anything will happen without you knowing I love you. And so, that's great. That's good. But the bad is that you think, I'm as close to my sister as you and Kelly are to one another. Mm-hmm. And my sister and dad didn't talk the last 18 years of his life. Mm. I still struggle with that, but for good reason. She's justified in that. But I back to a greater point is that everybody out there has struggles, and there's times when you can power through them, and then there's times where you need to surrender, right? And we've talked about that today in different forms. And then there's times where you just got to toughen up and take the bull by the horns, and because you are equipped and you can find your way through it. And I don't want to go too deep into it, but I lost my compass a while back, and I sent a text to 3 people on a Saturday night, and within seconds, Dale calls me. "Hey, man, what are you doing?" And I said, "I'm just hanging out with your dad." there's no substitute for that. You know, like there's times where you got to stop what you're doing and just help somebody.
He was one of the people you texted?
Yeah.
Okay, and then he calls you right back. He calls you immediately.
Yeah, and it was on a Saturday night, and it was relatively late, but he's a good human being. I've always known that about him. I've always known that from afar. So why would I text him? Because I've always had confidence in him. I think part of it is because we've had a similar path in some of our professional experiences. But this is the first time you've ever heard me say this. But part of it is because, you know, I've watched you, like, stand back in the shadow of your dad. And, like, I've heard enough from you say, I couldn't quite figure this out. I couldn't quite figure that out. I've never been able to figure my dad out. But the other thing that's very important to me is that, you know, aside from being a really good guy, I spent 15 years as an analyst. I spent 25 years driving race cars. I'm equipped to talk about drivers. That's one hell of a driver right there. I'm telling you, one hell of a driver. That's the one thing that always bugged me about you is that, you know, you always got so much attention for being Dale Jr. But this guy's a hell of a driver. And that was one of the things I wanted to make sure the world knew today because, you know, it's the right forum for it. You won 24, 5, 6 races?
Something like that, yeah. 26, I think.
Yeah, with the weight of the world on your shoulders at times. And it feels good for me to say that because I don't remember anybody ever saying that. But my God, if you take a minute and just compare him statistically to all the other people that would be considered pillars of the sport, it's remarkable what you've done. And you're a good guy and a good friend, and I appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks for saying that. You know, it's there's times when you get a text from somebody and you just know that they need somebody to talk to, or you just feel it like you gotta. This is an important moment. You know what I mean? That didn't just come out of thin air. Like me and him had conversations even beyond. You know, he texted me because he knew I knew what he was talking about.
Right.
He texted me because he knew I would be somebody he could trust. Right, and he could expose himself to, and not be ridiculed or taken advantage of or blown off.
I think, you know, had we not connected in October of 2021, I would never go in front of the world and say, look, I took 10 milligrams of Lexapro for 7 or 8 years, and and it's okay if you need an antidepressant. You know, it's okay. And it actually, you probably ought to do it because there's a responsibility, I think, for people that have had tremendous success to pay it forward. And that's one of the things I said to Dale when he introduced me to Mickey. I said, man, why are you doing this? And he said, because I just need to. It's the right thing to do, and I want to help you. And that's my responsibility back to him and really to my true north is to help people. There are a lot of people struggling.
If you like that conversation with Ricky Craven, well, you're going to want to listen to the entire podcast. The Dale Jr. Download is available on all major podcast platforms.